Welcome to your introduction to mobile marketing. This is a mobile marketing 101. We'll be talking about using mobile to connect to your audiences, what mobile marketing is, how it relates to you, and some specific strategies that you'll be able to use moving forward. With me today, I have Roberta, who is on the chat. She'll probably say hello to you all very, very shortly. Feel free to use the chat, as I said before. I want to make sure that everybody can hear me. So I'm going to quickly see. Just give me a little thumbs up if you can hear me correctly, everybody. Amazing, amazing. That's fantastic. So you can hear me. Fantastic. As mentioned before, closed captioning is available. Feel free to turn it on. And the room is being recorded. So we're talking about mobile marketing. And a lot of you will be wondering what mobile marketing is. We'll go into that very, very shortly. Before that, I want to give you a bit of an introduction to the Digital Culture Network, because some of you might not be familiar with some of the work we do. We offer one-to-one support and a range of resources to arts and cultural organizations across England. We consist of 9 tech champions, all of different specialisms. Mine is search engine marketing. And don't worry if you don't know what that means, we'll go into that very, very shortly. We offer resources like this webinar here, alongside one-to-one support, which you can easily book in. So if you'd like a one-to-one conversation about how your website works on mobile devices or anything else, feel free to book something into my calendar, to drop us an email or navigate to our website as well. As mentioned, we offer a range of resources to arts and cultural organizations. These can be found on our Knowledge Hub. There are 9 other tech champions, as I mentioned before, each with their own specialisms. And so you might want to learn a little bit more about websites from our tech champion, Roberta, or perhaps you're interested in email marketing from our tech champion, Peggy. We cover a range of specialisms, and you'll be able to find out more just by going to our website. So please feel free to make use of that resource. So let's talk about mobile marketing. This is the agenda for today. We're going to start off by understanding what mobile marketing is. We'll then go into page speed. We'll be talking about how to make a website more responsive for mobile devices. We'll have a short break. We'll be discussing how to measure all of the things that we'll be talking about today. I'll summarize it all, and then we'll have a Q&A. So there'll be a lot to learn, and there'll also be plenty of room to ask questions as well. So let's start by understanding what mobile marketing actually means. Because we talk about mobile marketing a lot, but why are we talking about mobile marketing so much? Well, that's because 52% of all website traffic worldwide comes from mobile devices. And it might be different for your website in particular, but overall, the majority of website traffic now is coming from mobile devices. That means that your mobile experience on your social media platforms, on your website, on any content that you're creating is even more important now than it has been ever before. Why else are we talking about it? Well, it's estimated that by 2025, 73% of internet users will access the internet solely on mobile devices. That's 73%. So that means that mobile not only is a very important medium for us to consider now, it's going to continue to be a very important medium for us to continue for us to watch in the future as well. So what does it mean? Well, the Google description of mobile marketing is it's a multi-channel online marketing technique focused at reaching specific audiences on their smartphones, tablets, and other related devices. So to put that in other terms, mobile marketing is assuring that you're able to reach your audiences no matter where they are, no matter what devices that they might be using. Back in the day, we used to only consider desktops because that used to be how people predominantly used the internet. Now we use our mobiles even more, and we need to adopt our marketing strategies to reflect that. Now, mobile marketing, as we mentioned, is a multi-channel strategy. That means that there are multiple different components that go into mobile marketing. We have search engines, which is how we Google things and how we find things online. We want to make sure that when people are Googling things on their mobile devices, that we're able to be visible in those search listings. We have social media. You'll all be familiar with Facebook and Instagram and other social media platforms, but these social media platforms are predominantly used on mobile devices. You've got push notifications, which is a new avenue that's being explored, where you're able to send notifications to your users when they're using an app, or whether they're using a website, and you're able to create a new type of communication with them. SMS, which stands for short message service, in other words, text messaging. Again, that is a huge avenue that many organizations do explore and do make use of. And again, it allows you to create a new type of more personal communication with your audience. And finally, we have in-app marketing. That's banners, videos, and other forms of advertising that you can do specifically on mobile apps. And as we all know, mobile apps are mobile apps are very, very popular, and the use of mobile apps are growing. We all have smartphones these days, and it presents a brand new avenue for us. But specifically today, because as we know, it's a multi-channel strategy, I'd like us to focus on search engines. The reason for that is there is a huge opportunity, and your website is kind of like a hub, a CV, also an additional team member. And so making sure that your online presence is optimized for search engines, especially for users using their mobile devices, really does present an opportunity, not just for some organizations, but for all organizations. So what is mobile SEO? Mobile SEO is assuring that users who might be browsing on their mobile device are have a user experience that is tailored to that specific device. And you might find that, on desktops, on tablets, on mobile devices, your user experience on various very, very popular websites change a lot. And that's because they want to make sure that you're still having a good time. They want to make sure that you're still experiencing their service and what they want to offer. And so mobile SEO is essentially assuring that your mobile website is as accessible as possible. And as we can see here, the mobile search results do differ from the desktop search results. That means that the list of options that you're shown on mobile devices, specifically on Google and on Bing, vary drastically from the options that you'll see when you're Googling on a desktop. So it presents a brand new opportunity for us. Now, when we're talking about mobile SEO, we do need to consider local SEO as well. And local SEO, in really, really simple terms, is making sure that you're not only optimized for different devices, but also people searching in different locations. And you want to make sure that you're visible in the locations that matter to your organization most. Maybe your organization provides support within a specific region. You want to make sure that you're visible within that region, and it's very, very clear. Very clear that within that region, you offer services to that audience. And so it has specific components to it. The first would be local SEO, as we mentioned, and there are multiple things you can do to improve your local SEO, including using keywords that show your affiliation with that location. For example, if you're a museum in London, you might include London somewhere on your website. And also making sure that you're creating content that's relevant to the local news and events that are specific to your specific region. So you're slowly building your authority within that region. Another avenue of local SEO is Google My Business. And if you'd like to learn more about Google My Business after this short explanation, I've actually created a full resource, which we'll provide a link to slightly later. But Google My Business presents an opportunity for businesses to tailor the way that they are seen within search engine result pages. And so, as we can see with this example here, for the Bread, Roses and Theatre, they're able to collect reviews, post some images of their specific venue, and really engage with their users in a new avenue and drive even more traffic simply by using this free tool. That's right, it's free. You don't need to pay for Google My Business. You will be able to set up a Google My Business account simply by having your own business. And Google wants you to do this because Google wants people to make use of their services. And the final avenue, which is very, very closely linked to what I just spoke about, is AdWords. And AdWords, if you're unfamiliar with the format of these advertisements that we see in search engines, essentially you're bidding to be visible for particular terms that people are searching for within search engines like Google. So for example, if I'm typing in theaters near me, this theater company, for example, opted to be visible for that term because people who visit their website through that term are going to be more likely to take action and the actions that they want to see. And the amazing thing for arts and cultural organizations, especially charities, Google offers $10,000, I should say, per month of free Google Ads credits through its ad grants platform. And many of you will be making use of Google ad grants already, but all you need to know for now is that if you want to make your ads more relevant to a specific location, you want to be thinking about local keywords. You want to be thinking about including locations when you're doing your campaigns, and you want to be thinking about excluding locations that aren't so relevant for your campaigns as well. And so the reason why this all loops back to mobile devices is because people are more likely to make local searches and to take more localized actions on their mobile devices. So it presents a huge opportunity when we're thinking of optimizing for mobile to also think about optimizing for local as well. If you have any questions on that, feel free to ask me at the very end. Let's move on to some more information for you. So there are more searches on mobile devices than desktops. And I mentioned that slightly earlier, but this kind of brings context to this entire conversation. We all need to be thinking about mobile now more than ever. And since July 2019, Google has enabled mobile first indexing by default. Now, to many of you, this might sound a little confusing at first, but it's more simple than you think. Google has three core functions. The first is crawling and finding new information. The second is indexing, which is Google's process of organizing all of that information. And the third is ranking, which is the part that we usually care about most, which is where Google arranges that content and organizes it by importance. So higher ranked content is shown at the top of the search listings. Lower ranked content we don't usually get to see. Now, when we talk about mobile first indexing, we're talking about when Google is looking and judging whether your website, when Google is organizing your website and judging whether it should be shown to users or perhaps not be shown to users, it's looking at the mobile version of your website first. And so that means that your mobile user experience is even more important in the eyes of Google than your desktop experience. And that's because the majority of people who will visit your site will be visiting on a mobile device. So if you want to improve your SEO, a good place to start would be considering what that mobile user experience really is. And there are other considerations here as well. We know that on average, ranking in position 1 on mobile devices gets you far more clicks than ranking in position 1 on desktop devices. And many of you can guess why. It's because of the screen size. Because mobile devices occupy a larger area of the screen when you're looking at specific pieces of information, we're more likely to make those clicks at first results that we see. And so we really do have a clear opportunity here. So other notable statistics, where to buy and near me, mobile search queries have grown by 200% in the past 2 years. And so that shows that people are not only searching for these types of queries now, they will be searching for these types of queries in the future. And we've all searched for these types of queries ourselves as well. We've all been looking for something near us because we want to know, we want to do something, we want to take an immediate action. And the fact of the matter is, you're more likely to take those immediate actions when you're using your mobile devices. So we've spoken a little bit about understanding SEO. To recap, we spoke about the importance of local SEO. We framed what mobile marketing actually is and the channels that go into it, and the reason why we're talking about SEO in this particular conversation. Now, I'd like us to consider page speed. Now, some of you will know what that means. Some of you are just kind of guessing. But to get started, I think I'm just going to make a cup of tea because, no, in fact, I'm going to, no, I think maybe I'll go to the park. Is it still loading? Is it still loading? 7.1 seconds. So like, you might experience your website as loading very quickly because of the cookies that are saved on your browser. But in actual fact, some users will be experiencing load speeds as long as this to access your content. And this is incredibly important. In fact, 73% of users experience some form of slow load speeds. This is a survey taken by Kissmetrics. And the reason we're talking about this is because of this example. Walmart noted that for every 1 second of increased load speed, they saw a 2% increase in conversions. Now, to reiterate, what that actually means is that just by making your website faster, people are more likely to take actions. And that's because they're less likely to give up and go to another website that's going to load quicker. So your page speeds are more important now than ever. Users care about it, Google cares about it, and you should care about it as well. When we're talking about page speed, to give it an actual definition here, we're talking about how long it takes for a browser to display the content, but also how long it takes for that content to be requested from the server. So really the speed of information transfer, that's what we're referring to when we're talking about page speeds. Now, the reason why this is a huge conversation now is because Google has made an algorithm update, which really does prioritize the page experience that people are actually having. As you can see on the screen, this is called Google Page Experience Update, and it was made in June 2021. Now, if you've never heard of an algorithm update, don't worry. All you need to know is that Google periodically makes changes to its algorithm so that it can show you the best information for what you might be typing in. So it can show you more relevant content and more authoritative content, and content that provides you a better user experience. Now, with this algorithm update, Google is directly going after websites that aren't providing a good user experience. And it's doing this by creating what's called Core Web Vitals. Now, Google already had what was called Web Vitals, and all these were best practices that webmasters needed to consider for presenting their content across the web. But now we have what's called Core Web Vitals. And what these Core Web Vitals are the most important considerations that you need to have when you're designing your websites. And so Google isn't making it ambiguous. Google is giving you actual metrics that you can use to verify whether your website is performing well or whether your website isn't performing so well. So let's talk a little bit more about what these Core Web Vitals actually are. What are the most important factors to consider when you're designing your mobile site? Well, the first is called largest contentful page. And to put that in English, what that actually means is how long does it take to load the largest assets on your website? So if you think about your website, think about your videos, your images, how long does it really take to load up those images? And as you might be guessing, if those images are super large, like a huge file size, then that's going to take a long time to load. Maybe your website might be even older and it's pulling information from other websites through iframes, for example. All you need to know is how long does it take for this type of content to be visible, specifically on mobile devices, but in general. And if it takes longer than 2.5 seconds, then it needs improvement. If it takes longer than 4 seconds, then Google's considering that content poor. The second really important metric is first input delay. And to put that in English, what that actually means is how long does it take for a device to respond to me when I take an action. So if I was to click on a button, how long does it take for something to respond, for something to actually happen? And if it takes longer than 100 milliseconds, then it needs improvement. Longer than 300 milliseconds, then it's poor. And the third really important metric that we want to be considering is communicative layout shift. And to put that in English, all that means is how much shifting around is happening on my page. Are there lots of pop-ups? Am I requiring users to take lots of actions? We've all been on the types of web pages that have a bunch of stuff moving around. And what that actually does is really hinder the user experience, especially on mobile devices, where it can become even harder to take actions to close some of these pop-ups that are showing up, and to get around some of these things. And so all of these pop-ups and these types of user hindering features are going to have a negative impact on your user experience. And so to recap, we talked about how long it took for the assets on your page to be shown and to be visible on screen. We spoke about how quickly your website responded to interactions, i.e. being clicked, buttons being interacted with. And then we spoke about how much shifting is happening on the page. And yes, these are the most important factors when you're considering how your website is working for people on mobile devices. Now, as I mentioned before, everything I mentioned here is extremely, extremely measurable. And Google has an array of free tools that we can use to measure each of these things that we spoke about just now. The tool that I'd like us to consider is the Page Speed Insights tool. And I'm going to show you what that looks like just now. So here we're on the Digital Culture Network's website. Now, say I want to see how good this website is optimized for mobile devices. And I'm aware of what all of those metrics mean. I want to measure this website for free. What I can do is I can paste this website into the Page Speed Insights tool and click Analyze. Takes a little bit of waiting sometimes. Google is just assessing this website, seeing if it has any additional information regarding this website. But what we'll see very shortly when it's very, very done is a score. And that score will tell us how optimized our website is for mobiles, but also how optimized our website is for desktops. So let's wait a couple of seconds and see what results we get. The anticipation is building. Very interesting. So we got our results back. Now let's have a little look at what we can see. So the first thing we can see is a score. Now this score tells us how optimized our website is against those core metrics that we spoke about not so long ago. We can look at how optimized it is on mobiles, but also on desktops as well. As we can see, we're doing slightly better on desktops than we're doing on mobiles. Now we can see a screenshot of what our website looks like on mobile devices. And we can also see some scores assessing the metrics that we spoke about just earlier. So we can see that it takes longer than 2.5 seconds to load some of the largest pieces of content on our website. So that's something that we might look at. We might look at that by reducing the size of some of the images that we're using. We can see that our first input delay is really quick. That means that if you were to take a quick action on our website, you'll get a response very, very quickly. If you click on a button, something will happen in a very, very short amount of time. We can see that the layout shift is pretty good. That means that we haven't got any pop-ups or anything that really does hinder the user experience. But beyond some of these basic metrics, we do have some actionable steps that we can take forward to our developers. And so, for example, we can see where the actual opportunities are. And you don't need to know every single one of these yourself, but there are some core categories of issues that we should consider. The first is how much code is going on in the back end of our websites. If our website has a lot of plugins, which we can easily check if you're using a WordPress website just by going to plugins, If we have a lot of really big images, if we have a bunch of unused code, which developers can check your website for, reducing all of these things, including the kinds of formats that our images are uploaded as, we want to be using JPEGs. All of these factors have an impact as to how quickly our website loads up. And if we make some of these changes and run the test again, we will see a new result. And it's a really easy and free way for us to measure how mobile friendly our website is. There are other diagnostics here as well, but you don't need to know what each of these things mean. Plus, if you wanted a bit more of a description, Google gives that. But all I wanted to do with this demonstration is make you aware of this tool so that you know that making your website more mobile friendly is something that's in your hands. Cool. So let's go to our next slide here. Which is a reminder that these metrics will evolve over time. Google openly acknowledges that these metrics aren't perfect. I'm sure if you sit down and you really scrutinize, instances where you're experiencing a bad mobile experience, you will find areas that aren't covered within the free metrics that I recently spoke about. But Google has openly said that these metrics will evolve. And so what it means for us is that we need to stay on the ball. We need to keep our eyes on what is actually happening. And we need to be openly looking for experiences to give our users a better time when they're scrolling, when they're interacting, and when they're doing things, and when they're engaging with our content. Perhaps not just on websites, but if you have other types of online platforms as well. I think all of this is very, very important. So we spoke about page speed just there, and we spoke about understanding what mobile marketing actually is and channels that go into it. Now let's talk a little bit about making your website more responsive. Now, if you don't know what responsive design is, I'm going to summarize it very, very briefly now. All it means is making sure that your website is accessible no matter what device a user is browsing on, and that you're offering them a tailored experience, that things change on your website so that when a user opens that website on a smaller screen size, they still have a good user experience. And this is very important because it means that you're not inadvertently turning users away simply because of the browsers and the devices that they're using. Now, there are a few core elements that go into making your website more responsive. And I'm gonna talk about the most important elements now. It might seem complicated when you look at the fact that there are a few things, but many of these things are actually common sense. You'll find that you think about these things subconsciously anyway when you're browsing on a mobile device. And when I mention them, you'll be like, oh yeah, like I hate when websites do that. So the first is making sure that your theme is responsive. So most of you will probably have a WordPress website. And the way you can install a responsive theme is by going to our themes and then just searching for responsive and downloading a theme that is actually responsive, that obviously correlates to the brand that you want to be giving off. And you can check if your theme is responsive simply by going on your browser and dragging the width of the browser and seeing whether the content automatically shifts or whether it stays the same no matter what browser or what screen size is being used. And so responsive means that elements of the site are dynamically changing to the devices that the users are using. Some of these other points are things that you're not going to be so surprised about. So avoiding lengthy pages, because as you know, on mobile devices, we'll have to do more scrolling because we're using a smaller screen size. Simplifying your menus. Many of you work in organizations that offer a huge range of options. But the fact of the matter is, on mobile devices, all of those options really do hurt the user experience. Clear call to actions. Clear call to actions simply mean making the buttons really clear and easy to click, and assuring that people know where they're supposed to go and what action they're supposed to take. So it really is an opportunity for you to think a little bit about that user journey, keeping your forms short. And what that means is just making sure that the forms on your website, if you're asking people to contact you, for example, that those forms are not excessively long, and so there's not an excessive amount of scrolling that needs to be done. You need to consider your font sizes, and if your font sizes are too large or too small on mobile devices, this is really important, because when we're using a smaller screen size, we don't want to have to squint just to see the content that's on the page. And so really thinking about the size of our texts, the size of the assets, specifically when you're browsing on your mobile device, all of that is really important. I hope you're looking at your websites now and having a little think about all of these things. Including a search function, essentially making things really easy to find on your website. So there is as few clicks as possible needed to take a specific action. You want to make sure that your icons are sized correctly. They're not too big and not too small. You want to make sure that things are easy to click, but also, they don't take up too much room so you can't escape them. And the final point touches upon one of the things that we spoke about before, which is removing pop-ups and removing all of those things that really do hinder the user experience on mobile devices. I think we've all been on websites where a pop-up shows up and we're trying to click it. We're trying to find the X button, but we're not quite finding it. Google is aware of that. Google knows that that is the experience that users are having. So if you offer that experience on your website, that's not going to be a very good thing. And let's look at the Digital Culture Network's website as an example. So you can see that our website is responsive on mobile devices. This is what our website looks like on mobile devices. You can see, just looking at the scroll on some of our pages, that they aren't excessively long. So this makes our website more mobile friendly. The call to actions are extremely simple and easy to click and easy to find. Not to mention, there aren't too many options, and so you're not bombarded with options on your mobile device. We don't do any pop-ups. The text is a good size. This is a very standard and very simple example. And to see if your website is responsive, all you need to do is consider some of the things that we spoke about just now, and also consider how your website adheres to them. So that was a run through of what mobile marketing actually is, what page speed actually is, and how to make your website more responsive, no matter what device that your users might be using. All of these considerations are extremely important. And because of this, I want to give you 5 minutes to digest everything. I understand that it's a lot of information, and then we'll talk about a little bit. Then we'll talk a little bit about measurement. We'll summarize, and you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. So feel free to take 5 minutes now. We'll have a little break, and we'll touch back in at 22. So thank you very much, guys. Let's take a 5-minute break. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is back. I hope everyone enjoyed your 5-minute break and that you're finding this webinar extremely useful. As mentioned, you will have an opportunity during the Q&A to ask any questions that you have regarding everything that we've just spoke about. Just to recap on some of the things that we spoke about, we touched on what mobile marketing actually was. We spoke about search engines, social media, the use of push notifications, text message marketing and in-app marketing, but we really did hone in on search engines as it was a huge opportunity. And then we spoke about what mobile search engine optimization actually meant. The fact that it considered the design, the structure, as well as the speed of the website to ensure that you weren't inadvertently turning users away. And now I'd like us to consider measurement. I'd like us to consider more ways that we can measure what we spoke about. Now, we already considered Google's Page Speed Insights tool, but have you guys also considered using Search Console? Now, if you don't know what Search Console is, it's like Google Analytics, but it is an alternative Google tool that specifically focuses on how users are interacting with your website using search. Now, its implementation is very similar to implementing Google Analytics. You would input some code on your website, and then using that code corresponding to the details on your Search Console, you'll be able to start measuring traffic from the point that you've implemented that code. That means you won't be able to retrospectively go back. Now, to talk a little bit more about Google Search Console, it is a huge avenue and a huge opportunity for us to be measuring our performance, and something that I hope that you will feel a bit more comfortable with very, very shortly, because I want to take you through how you can be using Google Search Console to consider the page speed of specific parts of your website. Now, I do need to add a caveat here. This is going to be specifically more useful for organizations who might be getting more traffic to their website. So if you have a very small site and you're getting a small amount of interaction, then perhaps you won't have enough data to really make the most of some of the tools here. But I do think that it's very important that we are aware of what some of these tools actually are. So let's open up Google Search Console and have a little look. So this was Page Speed Insights, and now we're in Google Search Console. Now, when I go to Google Search Console, the first thing that I see is an overview. This is how many clicks that I have received to my website over time. But what we're specifically interested in, there are many things that we can go into for Google Search Console, because it is fantastic for finding errors on our website. It's fantastic for gathering data as to the kind of keywords that people have typed in to get to our website. But because of the first thing that it does, allowing us to see the errors on our website, we're able to access this page experience report. Now, this page experience report is pretty simple. All it is it's Google's measuring of how our pages have performed against the metrics that we spoke about earlier. How long it takes to load certain assets on our website, how much those assets are moving around, and how long it takes for our website to respond when it's being clicked on. Now, when we go to overview and then page experience, we're able to see more information about how our website performs against the core web vitals. Now, if I was to click on some of these findings, I can see that Google has identified 15 pages that need improvement. Now, if I want to specifically see what those pages are, I would scroll down, I would go to details, and now I can see some of these URLs. Now I can see that it's identified our homepage, as well as 15 other pages that are similar to our homepage. So if I was to click on this, I can run a Page Speed Insights report. I can see what my average score was. If you guys remember what I said earlier, if it takes longer than 2.5 seconds, then it needs some improvement. And I can also see similar pages to this as well. And this is great because even if you only have one page here, it gives you some information as to other pages that might have the same types of issues. So Google Search Console is a fantastic tool that we can be using. Again, it's absolutely free. Everything that I've mentioned so far is absolutely free. And it is a tool that we should be considering for measuring how we are performing and how our website is doing, and in general, how we can offer that enhanced experience to our users. So let's go back to the presentation. As mentioned before, if you need help setting up your Search Console, feel free to reach out to myself or reach out to James, who is our data and analytics tech champion, and we can absolutely help you through that process so that you feel more comfortable installing that tracking on your website. Now, it's been a very informative road up until this point. I hope that you've made the most of it. Before we go into the Q&A, I just want to touch upon some of the most important things that we spoke about throughout this webinar. The first is that mobile marketing is a multi-channel strategy. So although we're just talking about websites and your SEO, you do also need to consider social media, which is a huge avenue, using things like notifications and SMS marketing to create a conversation with your audiences, and other mobile-specific avenues as well, such as in-app marketing. We spoke about how to make your content more accessible, which is really important, because all of these things, they impact the people who need our content most. They're all very, very important considerations. When your pages take a long time to load up, maybe people who haven't necessarily got a smartphone are the people who are going to be left without your content, and they might be the people that have to navigate to an alternative service. We spoke about improving the local visibility and some of the avenues that you can use to explore that, such as Google AdWords, using our local keywords where we can, as well as Google My Business. And finally, we spoke about improving the keywords on our website to make it more relevant to mobile devices. We then touched upon page speed and the types of metrics that we could be looking at to measure our page speed, and the fact that page speed is more important now than ever. I remember it was 4 years ago, I was working in SEO, and it was still ambiguous. We spoke about how page speed was an important factor, but not a ranking factor. Now, I don't think there's any argument here that it is a direct ranking factor. And we spoke about making your website more responsive, which essentially meant making sure that you're offering that tailored experience no matter what device your users might be using. And then finally, we showed that everything here is measurable, and it's not just measurable, it's measurable for free. All you need to do is make the most of the tools that Google gives you access to. And if you need any help with that, you have the Digital Culture Network as a support. Now, that was a summary of our mobile marketing introduction, but I am very keen to see if there are any questions that have been asked during this presentation, or if you have any questions on anything that we've mentioned so far. So if you have any questions, please drop them into the chat. Where you have to, click everybody and post in your questions. Roberta, have we had any questions so far?
We have, yes. Let me just
fantastic.
bring them up for you. Hold on a second. Mark asked, how local is local? So I'm guessing that means that what the parameters of local actually means, whether it's a district, a borough, whether it's,
I see.
how close it is.
That's a really, really good question. And it's a question that really does depend on your strategy. Because you might be thinking, you might offer a service that's relevant to the whole of the UK. You might also offer a service that's relevant to a specific part of the UK. For example, maybe you find that most people that visit your museum are people who are local to the area. They're in your city as well as surrounding cities. On the flip side of that, you might also know that people who are in another part of the UK are more receptive to some of your marketing, and maybe they're more interested in some of your services. For example, if you offer an experience where people might go from, you know, the city to somewhere in the country to experience that area. So it is a subjective, it's a subjective response, I suppose. It really does depend on your strategy. But when we're thinking about Google, and when we're thinking about the real opportunities that we have, just consider that when people are looking for something near them, where they might be. So if I'm looking for a theatre near me, I'm currently in London, it will probably show me a theatre somewhere in my area around South London. And so I think that that's the response, I suppose. Local means what it means to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think they'd probably be typing in like a Brixton or London or South
Absolutely.
London or a postcode perhaps?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So one other question we've got is, what's the best solution to have crisp, large, high quality images without slowing down the upload speed?
JPEGs are the best option. JPEGs are an image format that we're very, very much used to. And so what we want to do is we want to be making sure that we're using like JPEGs and PNGs on our websites. What we want to avoid is using image files that are excessively large. And this is where the issue starts to come in. You might find that by reducing the size of your image file, making it a little bit smaller, that you don't actually hinder the quality on the website. But all you do is speed up the process of that page being presented to you. So the answer to your question is you really want to be making use of JPEGs and PNGs, and you also want to be making sure that you aren't using files that are excessively large, that they're nice and small, but without hindering the quality, so that users are able to experience your content as fast as possible.
Brilliant. And I suppose there's like plugins that you can use that do this automatically, like Smush, for if you're using like WordPress or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. There's Smush.
Yeah.
There's a plugin called Image Minifier as well. And I understand that minifier is a funny word, but all it means is it compresses the images so that it's delivered a little bit nicer on your mobile devices. It shows up a little bit faster. All of those
Brilliant.
are fantastic options, but really you want to be making sure that you're not uploading excessively large file formats. And another fantastic hack is making sure that you're linking to the same image rather than re-uploading it on every single page, which is something that a lot of us do because we feel a little bit lazy. We might upload an article and decide to upload the image again. But if the image is already in your gallery, then that really reduces the amount of resources that a browser needs to constantly load up. And so that's also an important
brilliant.
consideration. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess it's downloaded it already, so it already knows what that image is.
Absolutely.
So one other question, Hansel, and this is the last question we have. Do you have any advice for how many scrolls is a good amount on a website or an email? Like, what's too much?
I don't think that it's about how many scrolls. What I would say is that it depends on the types of content that's being shown. So for example, if a user is scrolling through vast spaces of empty content and they're just scrolling, trying really hard to get from one piece to another, they're more likely to bounce away. But if you're providing, if you're leading your users down a journey, then that is much more best practice. I think historically we tried to opt for really long form pages because we thought that the more content that we have on our websites, the more Google will rank us for the particular terms that we want to be visible for. But what we realize now is that we want to be focusing on user intent. Around 700 words is good. Below 200 words isn't so great. We want to be making use of images and other interactive elements as well, such as videos. And we want to make sure that we're delivering users what they need in as a concise a journey as possible. So I don't really think there is an answer, a standard answer to how many scrolls is good, how many scrolls is bad. I really think that the answer is thinking about the user intent and thinking about what types of content really do need to be shown.
Brilliant. We've had one last question come in, and it's what is a reasonable or maximum size for images?
Again, this will vary quite a lot because you know, your images are going to your images, depending on the image. Some images might be a banner. It might take up a larger width on the screen. Other images might be small logos. I think that when it becomes too large, when it is prohibiting the user from taking other actions. And so if it takes up the entire screen and it really doesn't need to, then you could consider that too large because it prohibits the user from taking another action. Not to mention if that image is also a link and the user can't do anything but click on the link when they're trying to navigate away. And so I don't think that there is a standard, this image is too large. I think you really just need to open up your browsers and mobile, your websites and mobile devices, and get a feel for if you're really prohibiting users from taking action, if you're squishing your content, if you're making your content excessively long because your images are excessively large, and you'll find the real answers there.
So it's a question of what the value the image has as in terms of width and height, but I guess in terms of file size as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Yep, great. So are there any more questions, Roberta? Because I am aware of time right now.
Yeah, that about wraps it up.
Fantastic. Well, I do want to say thank you everybody so much for tuning in to this webinar on mobile marketing. We are the Digital Culture Network. And if you have any questions or you'd like to reach out to us, please do drop us an email at digitalnetwork@artscouncil.org.uk, whether it be about your websites, your email marketing, your content, whatever digital work that you're doing, we'll do our best to support you as much as possible. Please also make the most of our Knowledge Hub. I have a resource coming out very, very soon, which is going to be an introduction to SEO. For those of you who still are a little bit foggy on what it actually means, no worries. We'll have a resource on it very, very soon, alongside a plethora of other articles as well. We also have a YouTube channel. This webinar will be available on the YouTube channel, which you'll be able to look back on should you ever need to. And finally, as I said, please feel free to get in touch. I'd also really appreciate it if you took the time to fill in the survey at the very end, just to let us know your feedback on this webinar and if you have any comments. Again, please join the conversation, and I really appreciate all of your time, and I hope that you found this very, very useful.